everybody, and welcome to Shadoe at Night, special Sunday edition. Once again, second time in 3 weeks. It's Sunday, February the 9th, 2025. Why are we doing this tonight? Because we got some news, we got some updates on the ostrich situation in British Columbia. We're going to bring Kari Simpson of SaveOurOstriches.com on in just a second. There was a little bit of, I hate to use the word misinformation. Let's just say it was a bit of a mistake. I caught wind of it yesterday after I don't even know how many people messaged me saying, "Oh my God, Shadoe, look at this. What's going on?" And so, of course, I reached out to Kari and she straightened the situation out for me right away. But I thought, you know what? We've got to tell everybody exactly what did happen, what didn't happen out there. And so Kari's coming on in just a couple of minutes to straighten out the situation and let us know what CFIA, the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, a very powerful agency, but still not above court rulings, especially federal court rulings, is up to. The Shadoe at Night live stream, as always, is brought to you by CanadaNanoSilver.com.
Silver is amazing. It has several natural health benefits, and it's been used for hundreds of years for health and healing. That's the main reason they made silverware from silver. But seriously, this nano silver from Silverceuticals is the best and safest silver you can find. There are hundreds of studies and reports on it. I've read some of the studies myself, and it's mind-blowing. One of the things that sets Silverceuticals apart is that it washes out of your body in 24 hours. No silver buildup and no turning blue. And it won't even harm the good bacteria your body needs. It's so effective they can use very small concentrations of silver, like 10 and 32 parts per million, and still outperform other silvers that have up to 3,000 parts per million. It's safer and more effective at the same time. It is an incredibly small particle that is small enough to work through your body, but big enough not to fall out of suspension. They infuse it into almost all of their products. It works in facial serums, toothpaste, gels, and even gummies that work to help your immune system.
For more information on these fantastic products, get a hold of Kevin and Anna through the contact tab on the website, CanadaNanoSilver.com, or you can call them. You see the number right there, 204-808-9292, and all of the retail locations are listed on the website as well. There could be one near you. Again, it's CanadaNanoSilver.com. That is CanadaNanoSilver.com. So quick hellos. Mike is watching in New Bothwell tonight along with Joyce, I'm assuming, on the big screen. Please don't watch me on a big screen. Please don't do that. It's so much pressure. My nose hairs probably look like steel cables to you. Sandra is watching. Yes, I'm not on Rumble. I should be on Rumble. Why am I not on Rumble? Well, we should be. If we're not, I don't know why we're not, but we are streaming out to all of the regular socials tonight. Could be I made a mistake with the input codes, but everything looked good on my end. Joe is watching tonight from Campbell River in BC. Hello, Diane in British Columbia. Derek is watching tonight. Susie in Ontario. Darcy, Cherryville, BC, next door to Edgewood, which is where the Ostrich farm is. So wherever you're watching from, on whatever platform you're watching on tonight, you guys, don't forget to like and share. Get it out there to as many people as you possibly can. Let me check out Rumble here and see what the heck is going on. I don't really know what's going on with Rumble, you guys. I'm sorry, but we are still on all of the other platforms, including ShadowDavis.com. And yes, for you all access members and members of the Shadoe at Night community on Telegram, that's a group there, by the way, with nearly 500 members. We will be doing an extension tonight as soon as we're done with all of the news of the night, including Kari coming on in just a second. And I do have a couple of other items I want to get to once the conversation with Kari is over. All right, so let's bring her on now. Kari Simpson of SaveOurOstriches.com. Exactly. By the way, thank you for coming on such short notice, Kari. What exactly is going on here?
Well, so let's clear up first of all. We received the injunction. We went to court on January 31st. The ostriches were to be executed on February 1st. And we went on an emergency application basis to the federal court. And Justice Batista, the federal court on that short notice, gave us a judge. Justice Batista presided over that matter. He took submissions from both sides. So the Department of Justice lawyers are acting on behalf of the Canadian Federal Food Inspection Agency, and then our team of lawyers. And at the conclusion of that hearing, he gave us his decision later that afternoon and said the injunction would be granted. He did not put a time limit on it. So what we were asking for is that we just have literally a stay of execution. I feel like we're in medieval times here. Stay of execution for these animals until such time as our judicial review is heard. Now, so many people are just becoming sort of quasi lawyers and all this, so we might as well explain that too. So when an administrative tribunal issues an order, so whether it's a school board, a human rights tribunal, there's a lot of different tribunals involved in business, and or the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, you have what's called the opportunity to have the court look at that. So a 30-day time window happens called a judicial review, and you have 30 days to put notice into the court that you want that decision reviewed. So that kind of gives you that 30-day window to prepare the court documents, tell the court you're going to have the review, and then typically that hearing or that review is held before the court 3 to 4 months down the road. In this case, we decided, because we did not have the luxury of that 30 days because the execution date was coming up fast approaching. And I think this is one of the very strange challenges that anybody has who wants to challenge this agency's Shadoe, is that they don't give you the time properly. The court dates for notice and everything don't align with how you have to operate in this matter. So, of course, we did not have the luxury of 30 days. We had the luxury of a very short amount, I think 7 days in the case by the time we got the lawyers engaged. So we had to make the emergency application not to have to kill those ostriches, and the court found in our favor. We'll give you the injunction. This matter is important. There's valuable things that need to be talked about here. So nobody gets to kill the ostriches until such time as the judicial review can be held. Now, they also just said the matters involving the quarantine were going to stay in force, and so that was fine. That's great. The birds could live. Then we got notice earlier or late last week that the Canadian Food Inspection Agency didn't like the decision, and the judge maybe didn't take into consideration the right sections of the act. So 2 acts govern this. It's a real strange character, this Canadian Food Inspection Agency, and then the Animal Health Act as well. So those 2 acts govern this. And well, the judge didn't really say he took into consideration this section. And we really don't want you guys to have a whole bunch of time. So we're going to go back to court this week, and we're going to challenge whether or not we can kill the ostriches under these certain sections without having the judicial review. And we want in any case, we want the hearing expedited. So we don't want to have to wait. We don't want it being, like the typical 3 or 4 months. We want it sooner than later, because these ostriches are so dangerous, Shadoe. Their virus is mutating, I'm sure, as we speak. And, all of civilization as we know it is at threat.
Yeah. So they're looking for loopholes, bottom line.
Absolutely. So word got out that we were going back to court and they wanted to kill the ostriches. And then literally...
Well, what happened was, and this was, I'm not throwing anybody under the bus here. I refuse to do that. Sometimes we just get things wrong. And people were misconstruing information that was put out. Somebody had said that CFIA was overriding the judicial ruling. And I went, wait a minute. No. There's no agency. There's no bureaucracy. There's no level of government in this country that can override a judicial ruling, especially one that comes from the federal court. I mean, the only entity, I suppose, in this country that could override that decision would be an appeals court, the Federal Appeals Court, or the Supreme Court of Canada. Correct?
Correct.
So when that came out, I kind of went, oh, no. Now I've got to get a hold of Kari. We got to get this straightened out. So here we are.
And thank you for that, Shadoe. My phone did the same thing as you. It started blowing up. And of course, my thing is like, oh, no, now what kind of thing? And, I just want to say this, there's a lot on the go right now, and our energy has to be put into things that are worth battling. But to have to then spend 5 or 6 hours doing damage control, bringing information to people that's correct, so that everybody stays on the same page here. And thank you for reaching out to me. I think that's what sets reputable and credible news agencies, of which, clearly that is, your approach to bringing people information. We have to do that. Now, having said all that, though, let's face it, after what we as Canadians faced through COVID and observed from the people who are literally in power, I think why this was able to get legs so fast is I think people are at the point, they don't trust government, they don't trust the courts, they don't trust bureaucracy for sure. So anything is possible. And I think that is a sad state of affairs. But I think that process and that thought process, it has some legitimacy, regrettably.
Yeah, well, the institutions are no longer trusted by people, right? And when that did get released, I think it was on X first, the comments were amazing. And somebody said to me, just exactly as you expressed, I just like to see one day without going full communist here, right? Even with the state the Liberal Party is in and all the lies that are being told by government officials, by ministers of the crown, I mean, bald-faced lies that what are you supposed to believe anymore? And I suppose that's one of the tactics they've been using on us to try and keep us confused and powerless. But that's why we need to be able to clear the air here. So what exactly is going to happen? They're going to go back to court on Tuesday or Wednesday, and they're going to challenge the judge's wording on his ruling?
So we're all kind of like, okay, did they get to the judge? Like what? Okay, so because
you see, that's the other thing, right? Like we joked about that yesterday. Did they get to him? That would be judicial interference, which is illegal, but how would you ever be able to prove that, right?
Right.
The judge, now this is only me predicting this, but I think that the judge, when he hears this, I can't even believe he's allowing them to present this. Does he have to do it, or is it something he can say no to, the judge?
So we're going back. It'll probably be Wednesday or Thursday. I'll certainly, the minute we get confirmation of the date, you'll be among the first to know.
Thank you.
Justice Batista, if in fact he is not amused by and finds legitimacy to the question regarding the intent of his ruling, because that's what they're challenging, right? The intent of his ruling. He was very clear. These birds stay alive till this can be heard. So for the Department of Justice lawyers to even be raising this, I would not. It's going to be a big slapback.
It's going to be a big slapback. I mean, these judges, is the wording clear in his ruling, in your opinion?
Absolutely. There's nothing, anywhere that you could look at it differently. It's this discussion needs to be before the court. It is a valued and important discussion that has to happen, including some issues around the constitutionality of what's going on here, Shadoe. So he went above and beyond, even saying there's only one factor that needs to be discussed in the courts. He said, no, there's other things that we need to look at here. And so his intent is so clear and obvious. It's just, there's no mistaking what it is. Now, do they have the right to go to court and ask for an expedited hearing? Sure. That if that's what you really want to do, because you think now that we have 20 some odd days where no birds have died, after 14 days is when everything should be dead, according to the literature on avian flu. These birds are healthy, they're happy, they're dancing. And of course, there's another part to that too, because we can't have that happening. So CFIA has now imposed further restrictions on the family. But as far as the court goes, no, there's no room.
I want to get to those restrictions in just a second. But, when the judge hears what these Department of Justice lawyers have to say, I cannot wait for his response. Because we've seen some pretty incendiary responses from judges in the last few years, right?
There are few, yes.
Yeah. So I cannot wait. You guys actually are I can't even believe you guys are actually wasting my time, the court's time, by coming to me with this. Like, right?
Yeah.
So these restrictions now, what exactly can the family do and not do?
Well, so this is in keeping with the modus operandi of CFIA. You know, they try to gain power in always over the farms that they target, right? So in this case now, the quarantine protocols that are in place aren't good enough. So some of the new protocols include, because there's this pond in between the pens of the ostriches, that needs to be fully netted so no wildlife can access and drink water from it. Now,
Suddenly now this needs to happen.
well, and here's some of the challenges. So I will be putting off a letter tomorrow asking CFIA for their assistance because, you know, we want to do what's right here. So what kind of net do they propose? How big should the holes be? Because we don't want to be catching wildlife and killing eagles and ravens and little birds. We don't want grizzly bears picking it up and using it as toys and getting tangled up in that. Could you imagine what would happen there? Then the question is, if the holes are right size to keep the mice and rats out, you know, because they live in this neck of the woods as well. And then the real major problem is this, though. It's minus 18 and that water pond is frozen solid. So who the heck can drink out of it anyway? Okay.
What about additional testing? I'm sure that the family wanted to get some outside testing so they could take it to court when they do have to go back to court and say, look at this. This is what our testing says. This is what their testing says. And the two are obviously in opposition. Are they allowed to do that?
Well, one would think that CFIA, considering all the problems they're having trying to contain avian flu, the mass slaughter of healthy birds is rising every year because their stamping out policy isn't working. If it was working, we would be seeing a reduction on all of this. At least that's the logical mind would conclude that. But we're not seeing that. We're seeing more and more. So you think that now these birds have miraculously recovered from a death sentence, you know, not one, you know, imposed supposedly by nature and avian flu, that they would be the first to line up and go, you know, we should test these birds. We should find out what is making them live. What is happening here? But no. They are prohibiting any form of testing on anything, whether it be a bird, a dead bird, no autopsy, no organ slice samples, no eggs, no egg yolks, nothing going to any independent testing lab to find out what's really going on here. As a matter of fact, if anybody engages in that kind of testing, you're looking at 6 months in jail and or a $200,000 fine.
So they still can't do that?
No, we're asking, and of course they're not agreeing. And so,
well, how are they going to argue their case if they can't get any additional testing?
Well, they have 2 old PCR tests that are suspect on a number of fronts.
Well, the government does, but what about the family?
Oh, no, you're not allowed to prove your case. Shadoe. How could that happen?
Well, so what are they going to do when they have to go back to court then?
Well, if CFIA won't do it, we're going to have to ask the judge for an order requiring testing. And, you know, again, we have this,
which would work out to be another extension. I'm sorry to interrupt you so much, but I'm a little fired up here.
Well, it gets worse. It gets worse on these new restrictions. So, of course, the family is also supposed to put up additional fencing now. And CFIA wanted them to do this a while ago. And so the family said, well, provide us with the panels. We'll be happy to put it up because the ground is frozen up there right now. How are you going to dig and put a fence up? They need to put all the ostriches under a barn. So somehow we're supposed to build a barn overnight. And my favorite one, no more loving for Frank and Lulu. They have to be separated because, you know, the love's got to get out of there. No loving in those pennons right now between those ostriches. So now think about that. All this time, these birds have flocked together, flocked, emphasis on flocked. I didn't say anything else. And, you know, so what is it that they're really after now? They don't mind hens and hens being together and roosters being together. What they don't want is any fertilized eggs happening, because we're getting into breeding season and this is when the ostriches start laying. So this is what I was talking about when I said they break the family. This is this family's income. They have an ostrich business. They sell eggs. They sell chicks. They have babies. These eggs go for science. If you don't allow these birds to fertilize that egg and make it viable, this family goes bankrupt. They don't have a business anymore. They don't have a farm anymore.
And so all of this, all of these new regulations, I'm sure they've all been documented so you can show the judge, like, clearly you can show CFIA's intent here, which, as you say, is to break the family and not for the safety of society, right? I want to show the video that you sent me. This is CFIA. Have they been out, by the way, since January 4th to the farm, or is this the last visit, last time they were out?
This is just the last visit now. Yeah.
Okay, so this is January 24th, CFIA, and look at the way they're dressed. Because I'm sure that Katie and her mom, they're slogging around there in rubber boots and jackets and suspenders, probably, right?
And they're still breathing still, Shadoe. Make sure you tell people they're alive and well.
Yeah, it's amazing. And look at the way these clowns show up to the farm. Watch this, you guys.
Every single time we keep sending videos of, look at how healthy and happy these birds are. How can you literally come kill them? You can, I don't get it. That kind of is the issue, I think, with CFIA, is what you're doing is you keep culling these animals that have built an immunity, and then you depopulate them, but then you repopulate with weaker genetics. And it doesn't make sense. When do we stop this madness? And when do we say, look at, here's healthy animals. This entire side, we've not had one bird sick on this entire side.
We're in a stamping out, and it's eradication. It's not a control.
For commercial poultry.
What you're
We're
talking
red meat.
between eradication and control. You're arguing for a control, whereas we're not there yet. Eradication is the path that Canada has chosen to deal with high-path avian influenza.
Okay, and when this happens right now, and I keep saying this to CFIA, what about the ducks that are here? What are you doing about the ducks? They brought it to us.
Different. Yes, I know. That's why biosecurity is really important.
We're offering to work with the ducks. We're saying, hey, why don't we all adopt this idea and start working at how to mitigate the problem instead of keep calling all these farms? This is wrong. And when you have, this is not your usual little poultry chicken farm. As you can see, these are ostrich. I don't even know how you can look, these guys, these healthy birds, and you can clearly point out one bird that you see that looks sick here today, please. Because I'd like to see, there is no sick birds here. And you're gonna actually have somebody come in and murder them?
Okay, let's start with your disposal pile.
She didn't even hear her.
No.
I can't even believe that these people, they're just following orders, right? That's what they're doing. Are these people actually certified in any way that you know of, Kari, these people that make these visits? Or are they just bureaucrats, paper pushers?
Yeah, so Troy Baroque, we'll be publishing their faces and their names, and they're the ones that do have some credentials. Some don't have some credentials, Shadoe. Some are clearly there for the diversity aspect that they bring to the bureaucracy. But, you know, the other issue that they've given the family now, or edict, is they have to dress up in these hazmat suits too. Well, Karen, the owner, walks among these ostriches. If she shows up in one of those, they're gonna kill her. I mean, this is they because they recognize her. I mean, it just the absurdity and lunacy and tyranny that goes along with their edicts is just, I was going to say thinking, but I cannot use that word in association with what these people are doing. It's criminal, and it is criminal. We've been looking at the criminal code now that, there are provisions in there that protect animals against cruelty and willful murder. And you must have a reason, you must be, have a good reason to kill something or cause something to be killed. And, when you talk about things like during breeding season, separating the males from the females, that is cruel in the animal kingdom. That, you're causing unnecessary stress to them, all kinds of things. So, we're looking at a number of things here, including, are these people in violation of the criminal code? Are they, without lawful excuse, asking for these birds to be murdered? And if they don't have a reasonable excuse, one that they can prove, not this speculation nonsense that's in the legislation empowering the CFIA, let's find whether or not this is justifiable under the criminal code. And I bet the game will change really quick.
I wonder if it's possible to get an order to prevent CFIA from meddling for a certain amount of time in what's going on at the farm.
I think, if we can prove to the judge they're being completely unreasonable, I think that may be one of the areas that we can look at. They have to act in accordance with, at the very least, a reasonable approach to what they're doing here. You think they'd be happy to have humans that weren't protected if, in fact, avian flu mutating and now infecting humans was a real issue. Here you have, a considerable amount of people happy to walk alongside the ostriches without hazmat suits. And, to date, nobody's been sick. When Dave had
let's hope one of them doesn't catch a cold or something.
No, they did. No,
oh, did they?
Dave, when Katie, who was on the show with us, the daughter of Karen, first showed up during this crisis, of course, she had a cold. And then, of course, Dave got the cold. Well, public health is calling them, harassing them. You have to get tested, this and that. And Dave, he's on the video a couple of days ago. I said, wow, for a dead man walking, you're looking pretty good, Dave.
There's no emergency that's been declared around H5N1, is there?
We're gearing up for that. We knew this was coming, right? We knew this was coming when Biden gave $590 million to Moderna on his last day in office to create, an avian flu vaccine for humans. And the CDC actually just came out with something today. So I think we are gearing up to this. It's just these darn ostriches got in the way, and the world started watching and asking whether they really knew what they were doing or not.
But until such time as there is anything declared, and I suppose they're looking at the smallest thing they can find to see if there's any kind of way they can declare people getting sick, a cold, whatever. But until such time, they can't do this. I mean, nobody's getting sick. Right. So when you go back to court on Tuesday or Wednesday and the judge slaps CFI back again, is that another 30 days that you guys have? Or does it automatically get extended at that stage?
No. So there's two different things here. So I think what happened is when they issued this last round of conditions that the family had to adhere to, they didn't think at that point when they did that gave us another 30 days for a judicial review of that decision, right? I mean, because we get to challenge all those administrative orders. So that's when we heard that, we're going to go to court and see if we can get, an expedited hearing. So they don't want this. They want this hearing to happen like at the end of February. And, we'll try to go for March. The good news is, and it is good news, is that the world is watching, and so are the world scientists. And every day, more and more people from top eminent scientists are going, this is perfect opportunity for us to test what is now being referred to as best immunity, right? And that is natural immunity, that thing that has, given life to humankind and animal kind, for our ability to take care of these viruses if we're allowed to. And, what they're doing is they're reducing the population of, whether it's animals or even endangering humans with this, by not allowing these robust immune systems to work and build guards against these viruses. So the chickens, they're making them weaker and weaker by, stamping them out, culling them all, instead of waiting for the healthy ones to get better. If there is some that do recover, then those are the ones you want for breeding stock, because they have built in this immunity. These birds on this farm, if you want, healthy stock that genetically has the ability to fight some of these viruses, you want chicks from this ostrich farm, right? So,
Kari, are they? Have you heard of CFIA? And I know that they've been doing this with chickens all across British Columbia, Alberta as well. I've been hearing about, but are they involved now with any herds of cattle or pigs or anything that you've heard of?
pigs and elk. Elk came by my window the other day. They're killing 5 elk for tuberculosis, but they didn't do the typical skin test. They're doing a new test, so they have to kill 5 of them to see if their tests work, Shadoe, right? So, these culls are happening. I think we're up to 10 million birds in British Columbia. Ontario is cull city as well. We'll be issuing all those graphics on how many animals are being killed under the guise of avian flu. They're looking now, the next big target, because what's happened down south is they found avian flu in dairy cows. So they actually shut down a few dairy farms. They've now gone bankrupt because you just can't do this. And then found, oh, well, maybe they're not a problem after all, of course, after going bankrupt. But we know from leaked videos involving Bonnie Henry and Theresa Tam that they're targeting our dairy industry here as well. Currently, the policy is if they do find avian flu, they won't kill or cull the cattle or the dairy cows. But we know that would change in a heartbeat. It's the nudge thing. Well, oh, isn't that good of them? They're being so reasonable. But then we know overnight it'll change and they'll be culling all these beautiful dairy cows, right?
And C93, if the Liberals get called back to Parliament because of that court challenge next week, they could pass C93 because prorogation would never have happened in that case. And I believe C93 is pretty close. And that's a private member's bill, too. Nate Erskine-Smith is the one who put that forward. And C93 would pretty much legislate the fact that they have control, the government does, over any kind of meat, dairy, poultry farms during an emergency, right? Even though it seems like they do right now anyhow.
They don't even need the emergency. They have the ability under suspicion, no proof necessary, to go in and issue these orders of cull. So even they don't even have to declare some. They could say, well, it's highly likely and suspicious that because somebody had something 40 kilometers away that your farm's infected too, so we're just gonna give a cull order, right? And unless you have the ability to rally the team that we have to save these ostriches, no farmer can do this on their own.
How was the response on that convoy day a couple of Saturdays ago? Did they get a lot of people out that day?
Yes, like 140 people all showed up there.
Wow.
And they were prepared to go the long haul, right? So it was a good day when you can go from having to stand and maybe go to jail to being able to celebrate. So but these birds are not out of the woods, Shadoe. It's going to take everything. This issue is so much bigger, as your audience is aware of, and than these 400 ostriches. This is just like, we're going to take a stand now. Things are changing and we're not going to back down. So I think there's going to have to be a new realization that if you want to have access to a healthy food supply, if you want to have food sovereignty and choice, whether your meat is pumped full of mRNA messenger vaccines like they want to give all the chickens, or you want to be able to buy local and have vaccine free. You know, we talked, it was in 2023 when we did that show, when I did that report exposing premise identity and the livestock tracking and how every animal was being tracked, the larger livestock through those yellow UHF tags. And now people have to report every single animal they have in their yard throughout, I think we're up to 8 or 9 provinces now. You know, this is something that, you know, the
Kari, I'm sorry, is CFIA always had this kind of ridiculous power and they're only just flexing it now, or is it new that they've been given these powers in the last few years?
No, it's been there for a long time, Shadoe. That it's been incremental to a certain degree, but you know, the thing is that the amount of culling wasn't to the level it is now, because it was one farm here. Well, what one farm? Well, they're taking care of us, you know. But now it's at numbers where people are going, firstly, your response to this is not working. Otherwise, we wouldn't have to be killing as many, you know, animals as we are. People also through technology can see how they cull these animals. I mean, it's horrific how they kill those barn full of little chickens, and you know, this foam that goes over them like a sea of foam, and they just suffocate, you know, unless they get gassed, of course, you know, starved of oxygen, you know, take your pick.
Have you been informed as to how they plan to do it with the ostriches? Because that's something we talked about a couple of weeks ago, and there was no idea at
No,
that
and
stage.
that status remains the same. Nobody's come forward with a humane way of killing ostriches. The way they do it for the places that do meat production is they electrocute them and then slit their throats, which, you know, like, and then, you know, and then, so how are you going to do that to these large 400 large birds? You know, you're going to shoot them from the sky. The minute shots start ringing off, they're going to stampede. There is no humane way to do this. It's just
Somebody's going to get hurt.
Oh,
you know, like
yeah.
somebody, aside from the ostriches, somebody's going to get hurt if these people think they're coming in and killing 400 birds like that. I mean, they're big, they're fast, and they can be mean.
Oh, they're strong. How do you think they've survived all these years? I mean, they're one of the oldest living creatures on the earth. There's a reason for that.
Yeah, I think CFIA should probably go back to checking for rat droppings in restaurants instead of all this nonsense. Kari, thank you so much. Is there anything that we've neglected to mention?
Oh, I think we've covered most of it. You know, it's Wednesday or Thursday this week. We'll have more. I should know by Monday or Tuesday, Shadoe, of what that date is. And of course, I'll let you know so you can let all your wonderful viewers know. And I just want to say thank you to everybody. This is really an effort of so many people uniting with their voices, their interests, donating, helping us with the legal costs. And, you know, we call it Save Our Ostriches because these birds truly, I think, are going to change how we do science across the globe and right here in Canada. And we Canadians can take some pride in that.
I think a lot of Canadians, you know, who watch shows like mine and Odessa's and others have become attached to these birds without ever having seen them, except for on video. It's crazy.
Apparently, you know, I go, they go, Kari, how are the ostriches? You know, you're grocery shopping, right? And is Frank doing okay? You know, literally, they've become a part of family. And I said this to the Team O. We're called the Team O. And I said, you know what we're doing, and this is going to be your viewers will love this too. Shadoe is. The now that we have the dedicated social media channels, you know, watch, because every day you're going to see footage of these beautiful birds. And like I said to the team today, I said, we have an opportunity because so many people are falling in love with these birds to give them a window into their life. Every day we'll be bringing a glimpse of what they're up to. We have cameras and live cams and all kinds of things happening. And so I just want to thank the team of people. This is truly so many good people that have come together with their talents and their abilities and just dedicated and donated their time. Scientists, researchers, social media people, it's an amazing thing to be a part of this and watching this unfold. Not to mention
you've done a great job pulling everybody together at such short notice and making this such a successful campaign, Kari. Thank you for everything that you have done, and we'll see you soon.
Sounds good. Thanks, Shadoe. Bye, everybody.
Okay. Bye-bye. There is Kari Simpson. SaveOurOstriches.com. You can go there for daily updates. And as Kari just mentioned, you can go there and check out video of the ostriches. If you want to make a donation to help the legal case, go ahead and do that as well. SaveOurOstriches.com. So, what's the actual situation that is happening between Canada and the United States regarding the border and the fentanyl crisis and all of that? Well, Trudeau, about a week ago now, decided that he was going to capitulate to Donald Trump's demands, and he was going to get a fentanyl czar, and there was going to be 10,000 frontline troops at the border, and there was going to be more drones, more equipment, more everything at the borders, right? Okay. But the whole time, Trudeau has been saying, well, fentanyl going into the United States is not a problem in Canada. Compared to Mexico, we only moved 40 pounds of fentanyl into the United States over the last year. 40 pounds is a lot of fentanyl. It would kill literally hundreds of thousands of people. Is that really true, though? Is it only 40 pounds, or is that just the amount that RCMP, CSIS, and Border Patrols have seized? This is a fantastic discussion. It's not really a discussion. It's Rosemary Barton of the CBC being schooled by a guy called David Asher, who is a senior fellow at the Hudson Institute. You're going to like this, and it's very, very, very informative.
One of the things that we have pointed to a lot over the past couple of weeks when responding to the president is the amount of fentanyl that crosses from Canada to the U.S., which is, as you know, very small. It was 43 pounds was seized at that border. But I understand you think that that is not sort of something that we should be focusing on, the fact that it's a small amount, particularly compared to Mexico. Give me your thoughts.
Well, several months ago, you had the biggest lab in the history of the world, taken over by the Royal Canadian Mounted Police in Vancouver. I mean, we'd never even seen anything like this. It made Breaking Bad look like, minor league. So that, and definitely where there was Chinese organized crime, possibly Iran as well. The facts have not been released by your government. It's so sort of astonishing that they haven't provided more information publicly, but I think they know they're sitting on a big scandal here. The fact that this thing emerged and it's tied into these biker gangs who've been hired to go down to the United States in some cases and assassinate people like, my former boss, Secretary Mike Pompeo, President Trump, and others. This is another whole level of scandal involving it. But the key thing to focus on is that someone was making over 100 million doses of deadly fentanyl in a lab that you didn't know about right under your nose. Now, how many other labs do you think you have going? And, let me focus on one last thing. There's very little border enforcement. So 42 kilograms, it's a nonsensical number. We don't have, most of the drugs are going from Mexico to Canada and then being brought south into the Northwest United States on ships. You have almost no port enforcement with police. So we have no idea, except from our sources, what's going on. And we hear some bad things.
I will say, they did find the super lab. I take your point. It was under their nose, but there was police work done in order to...
Listen to her defending the Trudeau government. Well, they did find it. Do you know about the ones they don't find, Rosie? Good grief. Why is it that they always, on the CBC especially, notorious for this, Why is it they always have to jump up and defend the Trudeau regime every chance they get?
To find it, uncover it, and charge the people responsible. So that is a positive piece. I take your point, though, that there could be more. And so tell me what more you think needs to be done to deal with some of the things you're talking about, as well as the czar. They've increased surveillance at the border. They are going to crack down on Mexican cartels. I talked to the RCMP commissioner about that. And there is more shared intelligence that's going to happen between Canada and the U.S. What else would be helpful in this instance then?
Let me first stress the RCMP is an excellent organization. Okay, you've got very good police in your country. Yeah. Okay, you got great CSIS, your intelligence organization is first rate as well. Your problem is your laws. It's the Stinchcomb law, which I'm not, like the world's expert on, but basically every time we try to go up on a phone number in Canada, and almost all the money laundering networks tied to China, which is about 90% of all money laundering in the United States, is tied to Canada. Okay, so when we try to go up on those numbers with your police, they have to inform the person that we're targeting their.
Hold on. 90% of the money laundering that these gangs are doing is in Canada. And FinTrack can't track that and stop that, because they can certainly seize truckers and supporters' bank accounts during the Freedom Convoy, remember? But for some reason, when it comes to people who are dealing hard, dangerous drugs to children, we can't help you.
Number. That's crazy. How can we run an undercover police operation with your country? Which is why we don't run them, which is why the seizure statistics are so low, because we don't even try to work with Canada, because your laws are abbreviated and distorted. And I think this is an issue that goes back in Canadian history a long time. You need to update your legal structures. And if you do, and create a Racketeering Influence Corrupt Organizations Act, RICO, like we have in the United States, and designate them as terrorists, which you're going to do, I think we'll solve a lot of these problems. I think terrorists will come off, and we'll be in an excellent position to be partners to stop this stuff from terrorizing our country. I mean, our countries are getting killed by fentanyl. We got to protect ourselves.
So I just want to end on this. You just said if we do these things, the tariffs won't, well, they're not on, but they won't go on. I mean, do you believe that this is about fentanyl for the president, or that it's about other things? This is just one of the pieces that he is using as leverage here.
Well, I take him literally, and I think literally he says it's about fentanyl, and I think it is. I mean, we're losing, 80 to 100,000 people in North America between the U.S. and Canada. We got to stop this nonsense. We got to target these Mexican cartels. We need to focus on their money. So the key thing is to target the banks that are behind it. And of course, you've got a sort of tragic situation where TD Bank was laundering billions of dollars for Mexican cartels, and now it's being hit with one of the largest fines, literally, in the history of money laundering. So, it's not blame Canada for me. I love Canada. Canada's a great country. We need to work together. We've got our own problems with our banks laundering money too in the United States. So we gotta break the bank on fentanyl trafficking for these cartels and bring them down and take them out.
Okay, David Asher, thank you for your time this morning. I appreciate it.
So tired of the constant defense of this inept government. But I will tell you this, that the Trudeau government is not solely responsible for the gang takeover of the ports, especially in Vancouver. This has been going on, according to Sam Cooper of the Bureau, since at least the mid-1990s. So you've got Chrétien, Martin, Harper, all involved in this in some way, or ignoring this, I guess would be the better description in some way. And do you think that the Conservatives are going to admit that the Conservative Party, was involved in any of this? I mean, when they talk about, remember, 4,000 different gangs. We played that video for you last week. 4,000 different gangs, some from China, some from Iran, some from India, all involved in this fentanyl trafficking. Do you think the Conservative Party, who allowed this to happen from 2005 until 2015 under Stephen Harper, are going to admit any complicity in this at all? Probably not. And the wheel continues to spin. We need a Canadian Doge, but there is absolutely no political appetite for that. And from Sam Cooper at the Bureau, exclusive how the RCMP, CBSA, Canada Border Services Agency, and Trudeau government lost U.S. trust in the fentanyl fight. Veteran law enforcement officials, both active and retired from the United States and Canada, have come forward with explosive allegations suggesting that Canada's federal government may have systematically obstructed investigations into the highest levels of Asian organized crime. According to these sources, American agencies, including the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, have grown so alarmed by suspected corruption and legal loopholes in Canada that they've effectively sidelined Canadian law enforcement from sensitive investigations and intelligence sharing. How incredibly internationally embarrassing. Several veterans of Canadian law enforcement argue that while U.S. President Donald Trump's critiques of Canada's handling of fentanyl trafficking and border security are politically charged and often harsh, they underscore an uncomfortable reality. Canada is increasingly perceived as compromised, either incapable or unwilling to confront entrenched transnational criminal networks. American and Canadian sources alike describe a nation whose law enforcement agencies are in disarray, inhibited by suspected infiltration at the highest levels, obstructing investigations into billion-dollar drug networks and money laundering operations. I say again, obstructing investigations into billion-dollar drug networks and money laundering operations. These American and Canadian experts pointed to the notorious case of Cameron Ortis, Canada's former top police intelligence official who was convicted of leaking Five Eyes signals intelligence to some of the world's most dangerous Iranian state-sponsored criminals. His case, still cloaked in national security secrecy, of course, is believed to have also involved Chinese espionage investigations, but concerns about corruption within Canada's law enforcement and intelligence agencies extend far beyond Ortis himself, according to enforcement experts who spoke on the condition of anonymity due to the sensitivity of the matter. Several said that U.S. officials suspect corruption within the ranks of Canadian border authorities, yet those suspects allegedly retained their security clearances. It was mind-boggling, the Americans would say. We have good reason to suspect that this particular CBSA officer is corrupt, a Canadian policing expert said. This information would be provided to higher-ups in CBSA with the understanding that this particular CBSA officer is not to show up at any future joint meeting, so eventually there would be a meeting and the CBSA officer in question would show up at the meeting. The lead American investigator would end the meeting before it started. The Americans would shake their heads in disgust and disbelief. The expert said this growing distrust is a key reason why the United States has scaled back its collaboration with Canadian law enforcement over the past decade. The border, as it's run now, is Homeland Security. They have no respect for CBSA. None, the expert said. CBSA were seen as tax collectors for picking on families coming across the border with 2 bottles of wine and not actually doing police seizures of proper amounts of drugs coming through the border. It was a long-standing joke that they were basically collecting taxes for a mom and dad driving back with 2 packs of cigarettes and too many 6-packs of beer. Well, behind it, there's a truck coming with 2, 3, 500 kilograms of cocaine. It was just ridiculous. And that's how Homeland Security and DEA saw CBSA. And I don't want to paint every CBSA officer with that brush as being useless. Some of them are excellent people, they added, but it's just run so poorly. The level of incompetence within Canadian law enforcement is staggering. I don't think people understand. If they did, they'd probably be too scared to know how bad it actually is. Several veteran law enforcement officials say concerns extend beyond Canada's ability to confront transnational crime to the country's political leadership itself. According to 2 RCMP experts, quiet surveillance operations have raised alarms after placing Justin Trudeau and a former cabinet minister in proximity to Asian organized crime suspects. There were real concerns about Asian organized crime figures being at liberal fundraisers with access to Justin Trudeau, one veteran enforcement source said. This is deeply concerning. It was openly discussed in some units. Again, when you're talking about billions of dollars in criminal profits, this equals real power and influence. I'm not accusing Trudeau or any politician of being corrupt, but we would be naive to think that ultra-rich criminals don't use their resources in an attempt to sway our influence. Prominent people. Highlighting the elite capabilities of U.S. agencies they worked closely with, the expert added, we dealt with Homeland Security on different investigations where they were using very sensitive intel techniques, as good as anything that exists for law enforcement. They could easily have captured criminals with information related to the Canadian government or other officials that might not come to light through Canadian investigations. The police expert, explaining the decision to come forward at a pivotal moment in U.S.-Canada relations, argued that Canadians remain largely unaware of the nation's vulnerabilities. People have to be able to see and understand how bad it is. We're not even considered a serious partner vis-a-vis Trump at this point. Fentanyl coming from Canada to the USA isn't something Trump is just throwing out there. He's getting this information from top American law enforcement officials who know exactly how far Canada has fallen. And as a police officer who risked my life countless times alongside other brave women and men, I find it embarrassing that we've let our country get to this state. From a nameless cop. According to multiple enforcement veterans, American agencies began withholding intelligence more than 10 years ago, after repeated incidents in which top secret files were jeopardized or blocked by Canadian legal demands. The level of stuff the Americans were willing to work with us on was incredible, but we were so hamstrung by Canadian disclosure laws and RCMP policies written to protect the RCMP from potential embarrassments rather than to protect Canadians from actual dangers, said a federal veteran with direct knowledge of Five Eyes law enforcement. The veteran described learning of briefings from senior Washington officials where they showed how intelligence was disseminated, and it was shared with the Five Eyes partners, excluding Canada. It was embarrassing. At the center of U.S. government alarm, sources believe, is the case of Sam Gore, one of the world's most powerful triad drug trafficking networks, with reported links to Chinese Communist Party operatives, according to U.S. government experts, such as former Trump State Department official David Asher. 3 Canadian experts said Australia had warned Canada about the threat posed by Sam Gore, also known as the Company, long before the RCMP recognized it as a major transnational syndicate. Widely regarded as a highly sophisticated enterprise, Sam Gore links Southeast Asian drug networks responsible for trafficking tens of billions of dollars in fentanyl and methamphetamine to global operations involving Latin American cartels and large-scale money laundering. Canada's largest ever money laundering investigation, E-Pirate, was directly linked to Sam Gore, a fact not widely disclosed, according to a Canadian source with direct knowledge of the case. The investigation collapsed in late 2019 after a police witness was exposed, resulting in a high-profile failure in federal court. Since then, Sam Gore's leaders have continued to exploit Canada for fentanyl trafficking and money laundering, facing little resistance. E-Pirate uncovered how their operations funneled billions in drug cash through British Columbia government casinos, hundreds of Chinese bank accounts, and vast pools of illicit funds circulating throughout Latin America. British Columbia government casinos. Wow. For example, the Americans, the intel these guys were giving us on money laundering associated to BC government casinos in the E-Pirate investigations, the Americans were more willing to take this on, but it's in Canada, a veteran enforcement source said. It was the Sam Gore crime group, or the Company, as police sometimes call it. We had information on some of those people operating across Western Canada, these huge cells of Asian organized crime, and investigations would stall due to delays with approvals or shifting priorities dictated ultimately by Ottawa. So this you can find on the Bureau.news, the Bureau.news, which is run by Sam Cooper, the Bureau.news. Here's an interesting one. We do have an extension tonight for you guys waiting on shadowdavis.com, you all access members and members of the Telegram group, the Shadoe at Night community on Telegram. Here's an interesting story. I'm going to have to bleep out some words because we are streaming live on YouTube right now, and YouTube don't like this one bit. Wuhan bioweapon scientist blows whistle. Repeat. Was engineered to depopulate. A leading scientist from China's Wuhan Institute of Virology has spoken out to blow the whistle by claiming that the U.S. taxpayer-funded Chinese lab engineered as a bioweapon to reduce the population of humans around the world. Whoa. Whoa. It comes as damning evidence has emerged revealing that the U.S. Agency for International Development, USAID, we've talked about this for a week now. And by the way, Global Affairs Canada, if you're not on X, go to X and type in the search bar Global Affairs Canada. You will be blown away by the money they are wasting. Our taxpayer money they're wasting on these ridiculous DEI and gender policies all across the world. Hundreds of thousands, millions of our dollars. Anyway, this comes as damning evidence has emerged revealing that USAID used taxpayer money to fund the development of as a bioweapon in the same Wuhan laboratory. As Slay News reported earlier this week, last week now, the alarming discovery was revealed by President Donald Trump's Department of Government Efficiency, Elon Musk, after his watchdog investigated USAID spending. The investigation by Doge found that tax dollars have been funded through USAID to the Wuhan Institute of Virology in China to develop as a bioweapon. According to Musk, USAID has also been funding the development of other deadly viruses to be used as bioweapons against the public. Musk revealed that USAID funded bioweapon research, including, that killed millions of people. These reports now appear to be further confirmed after the Wuhan whistleblower has made the same allegations. Wuhan bioweapon scientist Xiao Shan made the explosive claim during an interview with Asian News International reporter Jennifer Zeng. Shan, also known as Xiao Chao, provided Zeng, a member of the International Press Association, with firsthand information and unique insights about China and the Chinese Communist Party. Zeng described Shan's claims as shocking and astonishing while detailing his explosive admission. Shan said he and his colleagues at the Wuhan lab were tasked with identifying the most effective strain for spreading among various species, including humans. Says he was given 4 strains of by his superior in Nanjing City in 2019 to test which one of them was the most virulent and transmissible. Shan tested the virus on human ACE2 receptors, bats, and monkeys. His reveals that the researchers at the Wuhan lab were under orders to develop the as a bioweapon to kill humans. Shan also mentioned in the interview that several of his colleagues went missing during the 2019 Military World Games in Wuhan. Later, one of them revealed that they were sent to hotels where athletes from various countries were staying to check the health or hygiene conditions. Since checking hygiene doesn't require virologists, Shan suspected that they were sent there to spread the And there is the video. You can find this on X. Let me see. I can't play it, obviously, not right now, but you can find that on X. I'm going to drop a link, you guys. I'll drop a link in the Telegram group during the All Access extension tonight. So if you're not a member of the Telegram group, Shadoe at Night community on Telegram, go there and become one. It's free. Shan also claimed that in April of 2020, he was sent to Xinjiang to assess the health of Uyghur individuals held in re-education camps. He revealed that he was instructed to develop methods to spread a virus and observe its effects on humans. While blowing the whistle to Zhang, Shan emphasized that the information he's exposed only represents a fraction of the larger puzzle surrounding the origins of you know what. And we're going to leave it at that. But I will drop that link. Okay, so Donald Trump ordered the Secret Service on Friday. I want to throw up a clip here. Let me see if I can find. Okay. Donald Trump ordered the Secret Service to provide every bit of information on his would-be assassins. That was late Friday, and here is a clip of Donald Trump speaking about how he was saved.
Months ago in a beautiful Pennsylvania field, an assassin's bullet ripped through my ear. But I felt then, and believe even more so now, that my life was saved for a reason. I was saved by God to make America great again. Thank you.
Where are you, Donald? We're going to explore that in the extension tonight. We're going to explore that in the extension tonight. All of the things that he's doing with Israel. He wants to take over Gaza, maybe turn it into a resort, make it livable. All of these things are mentioned in the Bible, in Revelations, and we're going to explore that tonight in the extension. And also on Telegram for the Shadoe at Night community group. So if you're not a member there, go there and become one. And we'll leave the extension up free of charge for you guys on Telegram live streaming tonight. Here is the story. Trump ordered Secret Service to provide every bit of information on would-be assassins. I'm entitled to know, he told the New York Post. I want to find out about the two assassins. Why did the one guy have 6 cell phones and why did the other guy have foreign apps on his phone? No more holding back because of Biden. I'm entitled to know, and they held it back long enough. No excuses. 6 cell phones were allegedly found in the car of Ryan Routh, the 59-year-old suspect in the second assassination attempt on Trump last September at Trump International Golf Club in West Palm Beach, Florida. Thomas Crooks, 19, shot Trump in the ear at a rally at Butler, Pennsylvania last July, and there he is there. So we're going to explore more on this and more to do with Jared Kushner coming up in the extension on shadowdavis.com. All right, you guys, thank you for being here for this special edition. I want to thank Kari Simpson for coming on tonight with the update on the Ostriches. They go to court either Tuesday or Wednesday. I'm sure the judge is going to laugh at the Department of Justice and the CFIA and toss out their requests quite quickly, but we don't know for sure. That's just a guess on my part. Kari is going to update me, and once she does, I will update you. Coming up this week on the show. So tomorrow night, Dr. William Mackis joins the show. Then on Tuesday night, it looks like we're going to have Ken Drysdale and Sean Buckley of the National Citizens Inquiry. And then on Wednesday or Thursday, we're hoping to get Gal and Devon Harper on regarding kids in Ontario being suspended from schools if parents refuse vaccinations. Of course, you know Gal and Devon as the brothers of Garnet Harper, who was killed by the government of Ontario for not getting his vaccine. Now, it's not like they came in and they killed him dead, but they refused him life-saving surgery because he would not get that vaccine. And the reason he gave, Garnet did, is because people were saying, just get the vaccine, man. You're going to die if you don't get it anyway. And he said, no. And the reason I'm doing this is because if I did that, I wouldn't be me anymore. All right, you guys, that's it. Back tomorrow night at 8 o'clock for another Shadoe at Night live stream, 8 o'clock Central, that is. And for you all access members at shadowdavis.com and members of the Shadoe at Night community on Telegram, the extension begins in 2 minutes' time.